32. Jataka. A pleasing note. This story was told by the master while at Jetavana monastery, about a brother with many belongings. The incident is just the same as in the Devadharma Jataka. Is this report true, brother? Said the master, that you have many belongings? Yes, sir. Why have you come to own so many belongings? Without listening beyond this point, the brother tore off the whole of his dress, and stood stark naked before the master, crying, "I'll go about like this." "Oh, bad!" exclaimed every one. The man ran away, and reverted to the lower state of a layman. Gathering together in the hall of truth, the brethren talked of his wrong act in behaving in that manner right before the master. In came the master and asked what was the theme of discussion in the gathering. "Sir," was the answer, "we were discussing the wrong act of that brother, and saying that in your presence and right before all the four classes of your followers he had so far lost all sense of shame as to stand there stark naked as a village urchin. And that, finding himself disliked by everyone, he went back to the lower state and lost the faith." Said the master, "Brethren, this is not the only loss his shamelessness has caused him. For in past days he lost a jewel of a wife just as now he has lost the jewel of the faith." And so saying, he told this story of the past. Once upon a time, in the first cycle of the world's history, the quadrupeds chose the lion as their king, the fishes the monster fish Ananda, and the birds the golden duck. Now the king golden duck had a lovely young daughter, and her royal father granted her any boon she might ask. The boon she asked for was to be allowed to choose a husband for herself. And the king in fulfillment of his promise mustered all the birds together in the country of the Himalayas. All manner of birds came, swans and peacocks and all other birds. And they flocked together on a great plateau of bare rock. Then the king sent for his daughter and asked her to go and choose a husband after her own heart. As she reviewed the crowd of birds, her eye lighted on the peacock with his neck of jeweled sheen and tail of varied color. And she chose him, saying, "Let this be my husband." Then the assembly of the birds went up to the peacock and said, "Friend peacock, this princess, in choosing her husband from among all these birds, has fixed her choice on you." Carried away by his extreme joy, the peacock exclaimed, "Until this clay you have never seen how active I am." And in defiance of all decency he spread his wings and began to dance. And in dancing he exposed himself. Filled with shame, King Golden Duck said, "This fellow has neither modesty within his heart nor decency in his outward behavior. I certainly will not give my daughter to one so shameless." And there in the midst of all that assembly of the birds, he repeated this stanza. A pleasing note is yours, a lovely back, a neck in color like lapis lazuli. A fathom's length your outstretched feathers reach. In addition, your dancing loses you my child. Right in the face of the whole gathering King Royal Duck gave his daughter to a young duck, a nephew of his. Covered with shame at the loss of the duck princess, the peacock rose straight up from the place and fled away. And King Golden Duck too went back to his living place. Thus, brethren, said the master, this is not the only time his breach of modesty has caused him loss. Just as it has now caused him to lose the jewel of the faith, so in past days it lost him a jewel of a wife. When he had ended this lesson, he explained the relation and identified the birth by saying, "The brother with the many belongings was the peacock of those days, and I myself the royal duck." Jataka number 33. Samodhamana Jataka. While harmony reigns. This story was told by the master while living in the banyan grove near Kapilavastu, about a squabble over a porter's headpad, as will be told in the Kanala Jataka. On this occasion, however, the master spoke thus to his family. "My lords, conflict among family is unseemly. Yes, in past times, animals, who had defeated their enemies when they lived in harmony, came to utter destruction when they fell out. And at the request of his royal family, he told this story of the past. Once upon a time when Brahmadatta was king of Benares, the Bodhisattva was born a quail, and lived in the forest at the head of many thousands of quails. In those days a hunter who caught quails came to that place. And he used to imitate the note of a quail till he saw that the birds had been drawn together. When he threw his net over them, and whipped the sides of the net together, so as to get them all huddled up in a heap. Then he crammed them into his basket, and going home sold his prey for a living. Now one day the Bodhisattva said to those quails, "This hunter is making havoc among our family. I have a means by which he will be unable to catch us. From now on, the very moment he throws the net over you, let each one put his head through a mesh, and then all of you together must fly away with the net to such place as you please, and there let it down on a thorn brake. This done, we will all escape from our several meshes." "Very good," said they all in ready agreement. On the next day, when the net was cast over them, they did just as the Bodhisattva had told them. They lifted up the net, and let it down on a thorn brake, escaping themselves from underneath. While the hunter was still disentangling his net, evening came on. And he went away empty-handed. On the next day and following days the quails played the same trick. So that it became the regular thing for the hunter to be engaged till sunset disentangling his net, and then to take himself home empty-handed. Accordingly his wife grew angry and said, "Day by day you return empty-handed. I suppose you've got a second establishment to keep up elsewhere." "No, my dear," said the hunter. "I've no second establishment to keep up. The fact is those quails have come to work together now. The moment my net is over them, off they fly with it and escape, leaving it on a thorn brake. Still, they won't live in unity always. Don't you bother yourself. As soon as they start bickering among themselves, I shall bag the lot, and that will bring a smile to your face to see." And so saying, he repeated this stanza to his wife. While harmony reigns, the birds bear off the net. When quarrels rise, they all fall a prey to me. Not long after this, one of the quails, in descending on their feeding ground, walked by accident on another's head. "Who walked on my head?" angrily cried this latter. "I did. But I didn't mean to." "Don't be angry," said the first quail. But notwithstanding this answer, the other remained as angry as before. Continuing to answer one another, they began to bandy taunts, saying, "I suppose it is you single-handed who lift up the net." As they wrangled thus with one another, the Bodhisattva thought to himself, "There's no safety with one who is quarrelsome. The time has come when they will no longer lift up the net, and by that they will come to great destruction. The hunter will get his opportunity. I can stay here no longer." And upon that he with his following went elsewhere. Sure enough the hunter came back again a few days later, and first collecting them together by imitating the note of a quail, threw his net over them. Then said one quail, "They say when you were at work lifting the net, the hair of your head fell off. Now's your time. Lift away." The other replied, "When you were lifting the net, they say both your wings molted. Now's your time. Lift away." But while they were each inviting the other to lift the net, the hunter himself lifted the net for them and crammed them in a heap into his basket and took them off home, so that his wife's face was wreathed with smiles. "Thus, sire," said the master, "such a thing as a quarrel among family is unseemly. Quarreling leads only to destruction." His lesson ended, he explained the relation, and identified the birth, by saying, "Devadatta was the foolish quail of those days, and I myself the wise and good quail." Jataka number 34. Maka Jataka. It is not the cold. This story was told by the master while at Jetavana Monastery, about being seduced by the wife of one's mundane life before joining the brotherhood. Said the master on this occasion, "Is it true, as I hear, brother, that you are passion-struck?" "Yes, Lord Buddha." "Because of whom?" "My former wife, sir, is sweet to touch. I cannot give her up." Then said the master, "Brother, this woman is hurtful to you. It was through her that in past times too you were meeting your end, when you were saved by me." And so saying, he told this story of the past. Once upon a time when Brahmadatta was reigning in Benares, the Bodhisattva became his family priest. In those days some fishermen had cast their net into the river. And a great big fish came along amorously toying with his wife. She, scenting the net as she swam ahead of him, made a circuit round it and escaped. But her amorous spouse, blinded by passion, sailed right into the meshes of the net. As soon as the fishermen felt him in their net, they hauled it in and took the fish out. They did not kill him at once, but throw him alive on the sands. "We'll cook him in the embers for our meal," said they. And accordingly they set to work to light a fire and carve a skewer to roast him on. The fish mourned, saying to himself, "It's not the torture of the embers or the anguish of the skewer or any other pain that grieves me, but only the distressing thought that my wife should be unhappy in the belief that I have gone off with another." And he repeated this stanza. It is not the cold, the heat, or wounding net. It is but the fear my darling wife should think another's love has lured her spouse away. Just then the priest came to the riverside with his attendant slaves to bathe. Now he understood the language of all animals. Therefore, when he heard the fishes crying, he thought to himself, "This fish is mourning the cry of passion. If he should die in this unhealthy state of mind, he cannot escape rebirth in hell. I will save him." So he went to the fishermen and said, "My men, don't you supply us with a fish every day for our curry?" "What do you say, sir?" said the fisherman. "I request, take away with you any fish you may take a fancy to. We don't need any but this one. Only give us this one. He's yours, sir." Taking the fish in his two hands, the Bodhisattva seated himself on the bank and said, "Friend fish, if I had not seen you today, you would have met your death. Cease for the future to be the slave of passion." And with this advice he threw the fish into the water, and went into the city. His lesson ended, the master preached the truths, at the close of which the passion-struck brother won the first path. Also, the master explained the relation and identified the birth by saying, the former wife was the female fish of those days, the passion-struck brother was the male fish, and I myself the family priest. Jataka number 35. Jataka. With wings that fly not. This story was told by the master, while on an alms pilgrimage through Magadha, about the going out of a jungle fire. Once the master, while on an alms pilgrimage through Magadha, went on his morning round for alms through a certain village in that country. On his return, after his meal, he went out again followed by the company of the brethren. Just then a great fire broke out. There were numbers of brethren both in front of the master and behind him. On came the fire, spreading far and wide, till all was one sheet of smoke and flame. On this, some unconverted brethren were seized with the fear of death. "Let us make a counter-fire," they cried. "And then the big fire will not sweep over the ground we have fired." And, with this view, they set about starting a fire with their tinder sticks. But others said, "What is this you do, brethren? You are like such as notice not the moon in mid-heaven, or the sun rising with countless rays from the east, or the sea on whose shores they stand, or Mount Sineru towering before the very eyes. When, as you journey along in the company of him who is exceptional among devas and men alike, you give not a thought to the all-enlightened Buddha, but cry out, let us make a fire. You know not the might of a Buddha. Come, let us go to the master. Then, gathering together from front and rear alike, the brethren in a body flocked round the Lord of Wisdom. At a certain spot the master halted, with this mighty assembly of the brethren surrounding him. On rolled the flames, roaring as though to devour them. But when they approached the spot where the Buddha had taken his stand, they came no nearer than 16 lengths, but there and then went out, even as a torch plunged into water. It had no power to spread over a space 32 lengths in diameter. The brethren burst into praises of the master, saying, "Oh, how great are the virtues of a Buddha! For, even this fire, though lacking sense, could not sweep over the spot where a Buddha stood, but went out like a torch in water. Oh, how marvelous are the powers of a Buddha!" Hearing their words, the master said, "It is no present power of mine, brethren, that makes this fire go out on reaching this spot of ground. It is the power of a former act of truth, of mine. For in this spot no fire will burn throughout the whole of this eon, the miracle being one which endures for an eon." Then the elder monk Ananda folded a robe into 4 and spread it for the master to sit on. The master took his seat. Bowing to the Buddha as he sat cross-legged there, the brethren too seated themselves around him. Then they asked him, saying, "Only the present is known to us, sir. The past is hidden from us. Make it known to us." And, at their request, he told this story of the past. Once upon a time in this exactly same spot in Magadha, it was as a quail that the Bodhisattva came to life once more. Breaking his way out of the shell of the egg in which he was born, he became a young quail, about as big as a large ball. And his parents kept him lying in the nest, while they fed him with food which they brought in their beaks. In himself, he had not the strength either to spread his wings and fly through the air, or to lift his feet and walk upon the ground. Year after year that spot was always ravaged by a jungle fire. And it was just at this time that the flames swept down on it with a mighty roaring. The flocks of birds, darting from their several nests, were seized with the fear of death, and flew shrieking away. The father and mother of the Bodhisattva were as frightened as the others and flew away, forsaking the Bodhisattva. Lying there in the nest, the Bodhisattva stretched on his neck, and seeing the flames spreading towards him, he thought to himself, "Had I the power to put on my wings and fly, I would wing my way hence to safety. Or, if I could move my legs and walk, I could escape elsewhere afoot. Moreover, my parents, seized with the fear of death, have fled away to save themselves, leaving me here quite alone in the world. I am without protector or helper. What, then, shall I do this day?" Then this thought came to him. In this world there exists what is termed the effectiveness of goodness, and what is termed the effectiveness of truth. There are those who, through their having realized the perfections in past ages, have attained beneath the Bo tree to be all-enlightened. Who, having won release by goodness, tranquillity and wisdom, possess also discernment of the knowledge of such release. Who are filled with truth, compassion, mercy, and patience. Whose love embraces all creatures alike. Whom men call infinitely knowledgeable Buddhas. There is an effectiveness in the attributes they have won. And I too grasp one truth. I hold and believe in a single principle in nature. Therefore, it makes me to call to mind the Buddhas of the past, and the importance they have won, and to lay hold of the true belief that is in me touching the principle of nature. And by an act of truth to make the flames go back, to the saving both of myself and of the rest of the birds. Therefore it has been said, there's exceptional grace and goodness in this world. There's truth, compassion, purity of life. By that, I'll work a matchless act of truth. Remembering faith's might, and taking thought on those who triumphed in the days gone by. Strong in the truth, an act of truth I brought. Accordingly, the Bodhisattva, calling to mind the power of the Buddhas long since passed away, performed an act of truth in the name of the true faith that was in him, repeating this stanza. With wings that fly not, feet that walk not yet. Forsaken by my parents, here I lie. For which reason I conjure you, dreaded Lord of Fire. Primeval Jataveda, turn. Go back. Even as he performed his act of truth, Jataveda went back a space of 16 lengths. And in going back the flames did not pass away to the forest, devouring everything in their path. No. They went out there and then, like a torch plunged in water. Therefore it has been said, I brought my act of truth, and with that, the sheet of blazing fire left 16 lengths. Unscathed, like flames by water met and quenched. And as that spot escaped being wasted by fire throughout a whole eon, the miracle is called an eon miracle. When his life closed, the Bodhisattva, who had performed this act of truth, passed away to fare according to his deeds. Thus, brethren, said the Master, it is not my present power but the power of an act of truth performed by me when a young quail, that has made the flames pass over this spot in the jungle. His lesson ended, he preached the truths, at the close of which some won the first, some the second, some the third path, while others again became arhats. Also, the Master explained the relation and identified the birth by saying, my present parents were the parents of those days, and I myself the king of the quails.